You have to be a masochist to grow Sankt Laurent. Well, that's what Gerhard Pittnauer says anyway, and he's the guy behind this, the 2019 Pittnauer Sankt Laurent Vom Dorf. So yes, the grape variety here is Sankt Laurent, and before we go on, it's worth a recap on this variety. You'd be forgiven, of course, for not knowing a whole heap about it, because even in its Austrian homeland, this has struggled to get much of a toehold. In fact, it just accounts for 5% of red grape plantings there and a mere 1.6% of the total Austrian vineyard. There's also a bit of mystery surrounding its parentage, though a fair bit of conjecture that it's the offspring of Pinot Noir, while Jancis Robinson suggests it may be a cross of Pinot and the Jura grape Sauvignon. Now, the Pinot hypothesis is supported by its modest levels of tannin, lively acidity, medium body, spice and forest floor suggestions. It tends to be a little darker in colour than Pinot Noir though, perhaps a little bit more herbal. There's also blackberry notes quite often featuring alongside more Pinot-esque cherries. I think we can agree though that package sounds pretty appealing. So why isn't Sankt Laurent more common? Well, as Gerhard Pittnauer says, it's really difficult and it's for skilled hands. Like Pinot Noir and Nebbiolo, it's considered difficult in the vineyard. The growth cycle of this mid to early ripener makes it sensitive during flowering and vulnerable to late frosts. Its thin skins leave it susceptible to berry split and grey rot if rain hits in autumn. It also demands that you give it a good site and then rewards you with inconsistent, often low yields. And what about the name? Well, it's derived from St. Laurent, whose feast day falls on the 10th of August. It's about this time that the grapes in their heartland begin veraison. In other words, when the bunches begin to ripen, with the berries gradually changing from green to purple. So back to this specific wine, the 2019 Pittnauer Vom Dorf. It's grown on vineyards in the so-called Parndorfer Platte or Parndorf Plain, a relic of the original Danube River which deposited gravel, sand and broken stones back in the Ice Age. Vom Dorf means from the village, though that's not to be taken literally here, more in the sense that this reflects the area around Gerhard's home in Golz in the Burgenland region of Austria. In fact, the fruit comes from the evocatively named Goldberg, Salzbergacker, Zwickelacker and Jungecker vineyards. So there you go. Now, the relatively cool and windy conditions in this area lead to a longer vegetative cycle for what is, as I said, an early ripening variety. In other words, it's warm enough to get these grapes ripe, but the process is slow enough for really good flavour development. Gerhard Pittnauer regards 2019 as perhaps the best vintage of the last decade. Anyone who's tried the Riesling and Grüner Veltliner from the Danube Valley, so from the Wachau or Kamptal, Kremstal, will know exactly what he's talking about. In Burgenland, there was plenty of rain in May, and the season then progressed in stress-free fashion for the vines. It was warm but never too hot, and then autumn was lovely with blue skies aplenty, and the grapes came in ripe and pristine. So winemaking for this was typical Pittnauer. As always, fermentation started spontaneously and the wine was raised in used 500-litre wooden barrels. It was not fined or filtered and only minimally sulfured. And it comes in at just 11.5% alcohol, by the way. So there you see it here. Relatively deep but vibrant ruby colour. It smells of spiced plums, elderberry and sour cherries. There's some orange peel, cinnamon and five spice too, as well as a fresh herbal or hedgerow coolness. On the palate, it's medium-bodied and really interestingly pitched between sweet and savoury. All these fruit notes of blackberry, cherry and plum are there, and you kind of feel the ripeness through the wine, while its entry and edges are more the herb, spice, root and earth. There's a lovely, clean, gravelly mineral sense to it, and it all comes together, the mineral, the fruit and the sapid notes, on a finish of notable vitality, with very fine-grained, spicy tannins. And as this wine opens up, that more playful, juicy side comes into the light a little bit more, and the wine structure really suits it to a T. Now, I'm a really big fan of this kind of red wine. It's characterful and has almost contradictory subtleties to it that you can ponder and savour as you work your way through a bottle with your friends. So there you go, it's Sankt Laurent, grown by masochists, loved by hedonists. For more information on this wine, or any of the wines, of course, in the CellarHand portfolio, please feel free to get in touch via Instagram at CellarHandWine, or by going to our website where you'll find a heap of information about this and lots of other stuff. That's www.cellarhand.store. But in the meantime, thank you for listening. Happy drinking.